Thomas Wayne Riley, Mr. Thomas. Welcome to the JForte show, man. How you doing?
Very good. How are you doing?
I'm dandy.
So your intro, I'm sorry to interrupt. Your
Go
intro,
ahead.
it has the Trail Rider song
Big
and
Iron.
Big Iron on his hip. You know, I got my wife that bumper sticker for Christmas last year, and so it's on the back of her Subaru.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I like that one. It's specifically the Johnny Cash version that they kind of gussy up with like some old synthwave music styling.
Yes. Yeah, I realized it was not, I'm forgetting his name, but yeah, it was not, what's his name? But that was Johnny Cash. It's a great intro. I like that.
Yeah, I need to find a way to make that so I don't get pulled off YouTube when I do. But anyway, I figure just a few seconds of it ain't gonna hurt nothing. So yeah, dude. One of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, obviously, I find your work you do with your Southwest podcast very interesting. You know, that's like a lot of the Western and frontier cultures, like some of my favorite parts of history. Um, I love like the mountain man stuff. You know, like Liver Eaton Johnson, Davy Crockett, Daniel Boone, all that stuff. Uh, and I heard you talk somewhere sometime, and you had mentioned that you had a theory about Jesse James faking his death. And I'm like, that's a new one. I want to hear more.
So I had never heard that theory before. And actually, I did a big old series, 11-part series over Billy the Kid. And, you know, they have the whole Brushy Bill Roberts theory that Billy the Kid faked his death and then lived to be quite old, actually, and died in Texas. And I just did not buy it. Everyone at Billy the Kid, when he died at what's his name's house in Fort Sumner, everyone said that's Billy the Kid. Even the Navajo woman who was, not a slave, but like a help around the house was like, that was her child, quote unquote. And she said, that was my boy. Everyone said Billy the Kid died. And so when Brushy Bill Roberts' story hit the news, and well, obviously I wasn't alive when it hit the news, but I read about it later when I did my Billy the Kid series, and I didn't buy it. It just, because I knew too much about the Billy the Kid story, I didn't buy it. So then I did a whole series on the Knights of the Golden Circle and their buried treasure, which Jesse James was a major player of. And I fell for the story that Jesse James faked his death and lived to be over 100. And now there are two people who claim to be Jesse. Well, actually, only one person claimed, but there are two modern day living people who claim to be descendants of the Jesse James who lived for forever. And I went into my Knights of the Golden Circle series. I did 3 episodes, mostly over the book Rebel Gold by Gettler. But I talked to him. I don't like him at all. He's an asshole or a butthole. But Bob Brewer is the main character of that story. Bob Brewer is awesome.
Okay.
And so I kind of was reading this book, and I came across towards the end, like, hey, Jesse James may have been the one to bury all this gold that he stole from trains, stagecoaches, and banks. He did the first, daylight bank robbery in American history,
Yeah.
he and his gang. And so I was intrigued. And then I read not all of the Black Book, or Jesse James had many names, but I read most of it. And I read then 3 books by a guy named Duke. And they both claim that Jesse James lived very long. He faked his death and lived a very long time, continuing to steal, continuing to rob until he settled down in Texas, and then kind of passed on his knowledge to a couple people, which is why we have 2 theories about who Jesse James was after he faked his death. But so I kind of went a little beyond what you asked there, but I did not believe that Billy the Kid faked his death. I think he died by Pat Garrett.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jesse James was in cahoots with the Fords, and he lived to be over 100.
Sounds Sounds very interesting. Yeah. I was doing like a little bit of like going back and refreshing my memory and stuff. If you like, how do you want to like approach it from here? Do you want to like just go into like some other things with that, or just kind of give like a refresher of Jesse James? Like, one thing I completely forgot about was the area he grew up in. That's like when all the Bleeding Kansas stuff was going on. With the John Brown raids and that whole thing that like was like leading up to the Civil War. Obviously, like Jesse was like his family definitely supported the South. Um,
Oh, unequivocally, his mother especially, yeah.
yeah, because I think his dad died young, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah.
Or he went to California. He was a preacher. He went to California to teach amongst the gold, um, the 1848ers.
Oh, the
I think he
gold
went out
rush.
there
Yeah,
and yeah, he went there in 1849, I think, and then died within weeks from disease.
probably one of those Oregon Trail type of diseases. You know.
Dysentery. Oh, he made it all the way there, actually, but yeah, he died once in camp, right after he got there, unfortunately. But yeah, Jesse James' mother was a huge proponent of the Southern cause. And Missouri, before the Civil War, had the whole bleeding Kansas kind of bled into Missouri.
Yeah, because I think James grew up like right around the Kansas City area in Missouri side. I can't remember exactly where the raid with because there was that one stupid raid with that dickhead John Brown um that happened south of Topeka, I believe, in Missouri. Was that one the Potawatomi? I'm probably not saying that right. I usually butcher the engine names.
A
Um,
Potawatomi, but yeah, no,
Potawatomi. Okay, but yeah, that wasn't too far from where he grew up. So I imagine there's like a lot of tension going on the farm growing up. A little paranoia about like people just showing up and murdering farmers.
yeah, John Brown and his gang. I don't remember the year. I'm trying to remember the year, but he and his gang came from Kansas and killed a whole bunch of settlers in Missouri on the border of Kansas. And Jesse James didn't quite grow up on the border of Kansas, um, but it was impactful enough for especially eastern Kansas and southern Kansas, or I'm sorry, southern and eastern Missouri to be worried about what was going on in Kansas. And so during the whole Red Kansas, Bloody Kansas, the South and the North equally sent arms, money, and influential people to go spread the word that, hey, the other side is bad and you have to destroy them.
Well, heck, didn't even John Brown's thing? Didn't he have like a Yankee senator or something with him? Or if am I remembering that right?
John Brown was given money by the English government,
Well, that yeah,
by
that too.
English abolitionists and Northern abolitionists. He was given all the support he needed to do his little raids into Missouri and then eventually to the ferry. I mean, he was an absolute agent of the state before we knew that that word was like a thing.
Right.
An international state. I mean,
Man, that was globalism before globalism.
well, the British were very, very keen on abolitionism. I mean, they tried to. So Texas was deeply in debt after their independence movement, and England came to them and said, we'll completely pay for your debt to your soldiers and to your family members and whatnot if you join, if you create your own republic that is abolitionist." Now, that was an impossibility. It was Stephen F. Austin himself said Texas cannot be a republic without slavery. It just wasn't possible. I mean, they produced a, a, a ton of cotton in
Yeah.
their independence republic years.
Yeah. So Yeah, there was oh gosh, I'm trying to remember, like, I think there was I know it's probably, like, separate, like, because that's the abolition stuff from England, but wasn't there, like, some weird business going on between the New England states, during the War of 1812 also, where they were just kinda, like, letting the Southern states kinda, you know, fight the British on their own?
In every war this country has ever fought in, the majority of the fighters are from the South. From the Revolutionary War until I even imagine this
G. Watt and
fake
now.
gay Iran war is still
Yeah.
Southerners. But in the War of 1812, the New York militia refused to invade Canada as their federal government asked them to. And the Mexicans even used that in the Texas independence. No, I think it was, yeah, it was Texas independence. They even said, we can fight these guys because they didn't even go to Canada when their government asked them to. So they're going to be worthless here in
Yeah,
Texas.
what makes you think they're gonna come here?
Exactly. Maybe it was a Mexican war, but no, I think I don't remember now. I know I've studied too much history. It's all kind of running together, but I actually
Yeah.
think it was a Mexican war. The Mexican government in DFA in Mexico City was drumming up support for the incoming war, and they said, "It's gonna be fine. We can beat them in Texas or, across the Rio Grande because their border was the Nueces River. We can beat them in across the Rio Grande because because it was a volunteer army, quote unquote. That's
Mhm.
what Polk wanted. That's what the Democrats wanted. That's what Thomas Jefferson never dreamed an army was.
Yeah.
And so the Mexican government was like, these are volunteers. You can beat them. We are regular soldiers, albeit Mexican regular soldiers, but uh,
I mean, they do get sleepy, so there
they
is that.
they got to take a few siestas. Yes, sir.
Not to go too far off tangent, obviously, you're gonna know more about this, but, I have this funny theory that, after the Alamo, uh, the whole sleepy Mexican stereotype came about. There was, like, that battle after where they, like, laid down to take a quick nap in the middle of the day, and then the Americans caught up to them.
That was the pivotal battle
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the revolution. That was the last battle of the revolution. Santa Anna pulled up to the stupidest spot possible in a lowland with hills around him and a swamp and river and a lake behind him. And he was like, no, you guys are fine. You can just like lay down here and we're going to wait for the Americans to come here. But the Americans were already up on the hills. I say Americans, they were Texans. The,
Texans.
the Texans were already under Sam Houston, stationed on the hills with their cavalry, their cannons, their artillery, and their infantry. And so they kind of like, let's build a little small fort here. And then, oops, we lost that battle, and then we
So
lost the revolution, and then,
sorry about your luck, boys.
yep.
Yeah, it's just one of those, like, funny little stories I like to tell people because, like, a lot of people don't know jack about history, and I like to, like, embellish, like, stuff like that just to kinda get them interested, like, I do that for my kids too, that's why I'm like, I think that's where that stereotype came from, just be also joking in a joking manner. Um,
Well, the stereotype also came from Texans in Texas with the Hispanic Mexicans and California. I mean, there are countless quotes from Americans in California right before the Mexican War of 1846. And they're just talking about how, first of all, about how incredible the land is and how beautiful it is, and how they're not even upset that the Mexicans are the way they are because I think I just read a quote today, actually, it was really great. If everything in California rolls off the hills into the Mexicans' lap, and this is a place, and I'm paraphrasing, this is a place where if you didn't have to breathe, it would be paradise. Like the only thing that you got to do in California is just breathe. Everything else just falls into your lap. And we inherited California and Texas from these, sleepy people. New Mexico's a little different, actually. New Mexico,
yeah,
they had constant raids from the engines. It was a tough land, tough water situation. So they were a little different here. But I mean, Texas and California just seemed that life was this is the easiest life can be. So the sleepy Mexican might come from those two acquisitions from Mexico.
They were sleeping,
Yeah.
so we took it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, dude. Like, I will be completely honest. Like, I'm very ignorant of New Mexico. Like, I don't know a lot about it. Arizona, like most of my stuff is like, shoot out at the OK Corral, related. I know a little bit more about California. Out of those 3 states, the only one I've visited is California, northern, and when I mean northern, not the Bay Area, like actually northern where the big redwoods are. 'Cause, I had a friend that, his brother was a firefighter out there, like forest firefighter, and then, my sister-in-law used to live in, Southern Cal, so, like, I've been at, like, both tips of the state, but not the middle. Um, but,
I
yeah,
I,
like
uh,
go
I
ahead.
lived a year and a half in Orange County. I met my wife. She's from Wisconsin. I was living in Wisconsin. When we met, she was actually living in LA. We got married on a little road trip. We got married in Utah in a slot canyon. And because I told her like I can't move in until we get married. We got married, and then I drove across the country from Wisconsin down to we. She got us a place in Orange County. Lived there a year and a half. Absolutely beautiful, uh,
Yeah,
heaven on earth. Unless you like, weather, then it's
yeah.
like, well, this is boring, which it was, but still beautiful. We went to a week, actually 2 weeks before we moved here in New Mexico. We visited Northern California for the first time. It was the most beautiful part of California, and California is beautiful almost in its entirety. Maybe the Mojave isn't as pretty. It was the redwoods, the coast. It's unreal. You have to go visit it to
Driving
understand how pretty it is.
driving the PCH up in the northern
Mm.
part, it's great.
Did you do the Lost Coast Highway when the
I
one turned it goes inland, and then I don't remember the name of the town, but then it goes back to the coast, but it's like a dirt road?
I
Oh, man.
wasn't able to because I was helping him move, so
Okay,
I was
yeah.
only there for limited time.
Oh, man. Yeah, that road we passed one car the entire time. It was a bunch of ranchers next to pot farms over and over again, ranchers and pot farms till we got to the coast, and then it was like,
Yeah, I smelled a lot of that there too.
yeah, yeah, it's all stupid, but, it was absolutely beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a damn shame what they've done to that state.
I know. I just recorded my 6th episode of my current series on the Mexican War today, and it was over the conquest of California. And the guy who wrote the Bear Flag Republics, which only lasted 25 days, but he wrote the Bear Flag Republics kind of Declaration of Independence slash Constitution. Again, it only lasted 25 days. He borrowed heavily from Thomas Jefferson, and he talked a lot about how the California Republic is going to be a place with truth and justice and freedom from tyranny and government involvement. And the government should only help out when they need to help the populace. And they must remember that the government is also the pop. And I finished this. I didn't read the entire thing you wrote, but I finished my selected quotes with it. We're like, oh, the current California government can learn a lot from it. And then I said, but fear not, fellow Americans, because California, like ancient Spain, will be reconquered.
I think those people have a word for that. I don't exactly Espanol, but yeah.
Reconquista.
Yeah, dude. That's that's one thing I love. Like, I found like your work, and I sparingly like listening to it. I just come across things sometimes, and it is kind of nice, like get filling in some gaps in my history knowledge on some things that I'm like weak on. Um, and but yeah, dude, have so another thing, when I was like not get to start to get back on the topic. I think didn't Jesse James ride with Quantrill and his boys during the Civil War?
He did, unless you ascribe to the theory that there are two Jesse James and they're cousins, and both of
Oh,
them have
tell me
brothers
more.
named Frank.
Tell me
Mm.
more. Does this is it does this go along with like the topic of the night, or is this something like
It
another
does.
story?
It absolutely
Okay.
does.
Okay.
Now, I'm not sure I ascribe to that theory, but it is very interesting. And I haven't the problem is I have not corroborated it in anywhere. I haven't seen Jesse James also had a cousin in Tennessee named Jesse James. Or was it Kentucky? I think it was Kentucky. Yeah, he was in Missouri, and his brother was in, Kentucky, also named Jesse James, also with a brother named Frank. It sounds a little bit too much. This was from the book Jesse James Has Many Names. It's called The Black Book. You can buy it on, Amazon, I think, for like $50.
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm not quite convinced of that. But the the actual biography of Jesse James is he rode with Quantrill. Absolutely. And I believe that he did. Yeah. And
So
he learned a lot from him. And we can all learn a lot
what
from him.
there was a Quantrill book that was like recommended, you know, in our circle of like people we know or people we follow. And I never got around to reading it, and I didn't write down the name of it. Does that ring a bell to you?
I know exactly what book you're talking about. I have not read it, and I do not remember the title.
Okay.
Um, I read 3 books over Jesse James, and then I read 2 books that talk about how he didn't die by the coward Robert Ford, because Robert Ford wasn't a coward. He was part of the inside job who was killed later for his inside job. But no, I'm not quite sure of that
They
book title, but I can see the
they
the
really did
cover.
Jack Ruby him, huh?
Yeah. Well, so the premise, so I did a 3-part series over Rebel Gold, and a big part of that is Jesse Jackson, or oh my gosh, Jesse
The
James.
R.I.P. Reverend.
I
I don't I
yeah,
don't I don't even know if he's dead or alive. I don't know.
he's dead in
Anyway,
my heart. It doesn't matter. He never lived in my heart. Jesse James, and uh, they all pretty much tell the same story about his train robberies, his stagecoach robberies, his brief time in the war, pretty much only under bushwhackers. His brother Frank did fight for the Confederacy, but Jesse never really did. He was more of a bushwhacker the whole time,
mhm.
sometimes undermining the Confederacy, but honestly, not really. And in hindsight, not really. But he was acquainted with all these bushwhackers who may or may not have been part of the Knights of the Golden Circle. And when the war ended, they may or may not have continued their bushwhacking for the cause of Electric Boogaloo number 2. I mean, continuing the war after the war ended.
Trust me, I'm in Tennessee. We had a few guys that decided to start doing that too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Jesse James lived near Nashville for a couple of years after he quit briefly being a bushwhacker and robbing banks up in Missouri and Kansas and Iowa and whatnot.
Some would call that foreshadowing.
Yeah.
I drive by this like multiple times a week.
In this building, then a combination saloon and grocery, W. Earthman, magistrate and ex-constable of Davidson County on March 25th, 1881, arrested Bill Ryan, alias Tom Hill, ruthless and indiscreet member of the gang, members of which were living in the Edgefield neighborhood. Frank and Jesse James and their families left the Nashville area the next day. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Small world.
Small world. That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I went to a family reunion in Georgia. This is kind of unrelated, but I went to a family reunion in Georgia 2 weeks ago. And on the drive back, I met up with not quite an OGC brother, but I met up with a mutual of all of ours, Chief Slinging Beef. I went
Oh,
to his.
nice. Yeah, I met the guy. He's a good dude.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I went to his house. It was great, and then he showed me around his hometown that he grew up in, and they have a statue of Davy Crockett because that was his last place he was at before he gone to Texas.
That's pretty badass.
It was awesome, and they had this little town had the first or one of the first Mexican American War monuments in the country, and it's still there. So that was awesome.
Heck yeah.
I like those little monuments and plaques. I'm
Oh
glad
yeah,
they're still around.
they're in if you know where to look, and I could probably point you towards some, next time you're in Tennessee. I ain't gonna fully dox myself, you know what I mean? But yeah, so I guess we're gonna continue on that. So like after like the war, like what kind of got him into like robbing trains and bank robberies?
So I think his bushwhacking brothers kind of started the whole after the war, kind of started the whole let's continue the war. And actually, I didn't know this till I did my series earlier in the year, but the South, despite Jefferson Davis wanting to build a railroad from the South to the California coast, which is why he invaded New Mexico and Arizona, and why he talked with Mexico to allow us to build a railroad through Sonora and Chihuahua. Despite that, after the war, Southerners, especially unreconstructed, well, so all of them, they really distrusted the railroads. That was the enemy bringing Yanks and carpetbaggers down south. It was basically what we would call, like progressives bringing down their attitudes to the south. It was through the railroads. And so a big target
Yeah, we have
was.
the interstates for that now. I'm so sick of seeing Illinois plates in Tennessee.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, that is very similar and analogous actually. So they didn't like the railroads and they were all ran by New Englanders anyways. And so they kind of were rebelling against the railroads. And if you believe books that were printed later in the 1970s, Jesse James again didn't kill himself and the Knights of the Golden Circle lived on after the Civil War and they implanted prominent men in positions of power for the railroads, for the insurance companies, for the telegraph companies. So they were intercepting all of these messages saying, this is going to be on this train at this time, go rob that. And Jesse James was not the only one who was a beneficiary of those messages, although, of course, none have been recovered. They probably all burned them, or it was told by word of mouth, but I'm just kind of guessing there. So Jesse James and his group wanted to continue the war because there was a good chance, especially after kind of Reconstruction ended and ex rebels took over Southern governments, they were almost kind of wanting to try again, although it wasn't going to happen. It never could have happened. It would have ended even worse than the first one. But there was this very fiery group. I would almost call them fire eaters. But after the war, there were a group of men who wanted to continue to build and save for a possible round two. And Jesse James may or may not have been part of it. I kind of believe that he was, although there is no evidence that he was ever part of the Knights of the Golden Circle. But there are a lot of men around him that were. And also, there's no evidence that it survived past the Civil War. Although I would say the KKK was probably the continuation of the Knights of the Golden Circle, right down to their imagery. But
Yeah.
they all borrowed very heavily from Masonic and Knights Templar stuff,
Yeah.
which I repeat myself. But So Jesse James, after the war, he started this guerrilla campaign to kind of keep the Southern identity alive. I don't think he knew what he was doing, but that's what he did. And he bridged the gap between the end of the war, Appomattox, and when Reconstruction ended. I mean, he allowed the Southern identity from Florida and Georgia over Louisiana and Texas up to Missouri to kind of stay alive. When he was quote unquote, or by the time he was quote unquote killed, his brother and all of his ex Confederates, I'm not in the Confederate States of America, but all of his ex bushwhacking buddies, they were pardoned by the governor of Missouri because by then Reconstruction was done. And the governor of Missouri was an ex Confederate. And so when he was quote unquote killed, I don't think that he was killed. I will say that. But when he faked his death, his brother and all of his co conspirators or whatever you want to call it, they were all pardoned by the Missouri governor. And all of that money that Jesse James robbed over his years, before and after his death, well, not after his death, but before his death, his wife and his children got $0. So where did all that money go? Because it went somewhere.
Yeah. Huh.
Maybe he was doing it all for a higher cause.
What was what was that story of the Confederate gold? Tell me if this rings a bell. Like I know I'm like piecemealing this all together and going off of like bad memories. Wasn't there like a train that lost gold in Virginia sometime towards the end of the war? Isn't that like why the band had that one song the night they put Old Dixie down?
I cannot remember a specific story about a train
I could just be
losing.
talking out of my butt, dude. Like I'm like I
Well,
said, I'm
but the
piecing it
story you're
together.
telling happened all over the nation, except I can't remember a specific one in Missouri. But
So was this
Texas.
like the old Dixie version of my dad works for Nintendo, or was it?
No, I do not doubt. In the 1950s, there were two young kids. I think they were like 12 years old. A boy and his friend. They were digging under the house, their very old house in Maryland, and they found a huge cache of Confederate and Union gold. Actually, no, it was just Union gold. They found a whole bunch of Union gold and greenbacks that was seemingly robbed from a train going to Washington, D.C., buried under the house. And the symbols that the kids didn't know about the symbols. They just kind of were digging in the dirt and
Yeah,
just randomly found this.
yeah, they
But the
found money. It's
symbols,
like cool.
yeah, it was, oh, this is so cool. They found a bunch of money. The symbols that surrounded the house and that were in the ground or in the basement were found out to be Knights of the Golden Circle symbols, aka Knights
Oh, no
Templar.
kidding.
Yeah, I mean they found a cache of gold from the Knights of the Golden Circle, which all of their symbols were borrowed from the Masons and the Knights Templar, which the Masons borrowed from the Knights Templar. Because if you listen to Time on Earth, you know they're all kind of
Yeah,
connected.
yeah, those guys are fun. I love those guys.
Yeah, yeah. So it's all kind of connected in their Mystery Babylon series. They're
Shout out to Bird and Boz.
Yeah, oh yeah. You know, I met Paul a couple weeks ago, and he was great. I'll see him again in Milwaukee. Are you going to Milwaukee, by the way?
I will not be.
Oh, okay, that's all right. So these deposits of gold and silver and treasure, greenbacks as well, or U.S. dollars, Yankee dollars from the 1860s. They have been discovered in Georgia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New Mexico, California, Colorado, Texas. Did I say Oklahoma? Arkansas, Missouri, and Louisiana. So there was a group of people using the exact same symbols throughout the nation, including the Midwest and New England, Pennsylvania. They were using the exact same symbols and they were burying treasure in the exact same way all over the country after the war. And it was the same group of symbols that the Knights of the Golden Circle, aka I don't want to conflate the two completely, but the CSA and then the KGC were very close. They were brothers. After the war, there were a lot of thieves and land pirates that stole a lot of money from even just Yankee. Um, oh shoot, there were trains of money going west or they were coming east from California after the gold mine, after the gold rush, and they were being intercepted in the Northeast, and then being buried. And that was the 1850s to 1860s. So there were a lot of robberies that they've never found the cache of gold, but they found all these symbols around it. Somebody was doing this on purpose for a reason. They didn't take it and spend it. And I'm inclined to believe that one of the high ranking members of this clandestine group, who may or may not have killed Lincoln,
Mm-hmm.
were burying this on purpose for a round two. And there was a great book. Man, there was a guy in my area who wanted. He's probably going to be, but there was a guy interviewing to be a member of our chapter here, and he suggested a book to me. Rialdo. Oh shoot, I don't remember the name of the book now. I own it. I haven't read it yet, but it basically talks about how there were after the Civil War. Grant spent millions of dollars going around the world to collect Confederate gold and Confederate money. Because even after the war, the Confederacy was printing money and hoarding gold in European countries. And so they may have also been burying it around the United States. I don't know. And we're here to talk about Jesse James. He faked his death and he continued to rob banks in Arizona, Texas, Oklahoma, and bury it using the symbols. And he died after he was 100 years old. And two men then took his identity.
So, uh, did you ever like their whole DNA thing they did in the 90s uh to like confirm that he's actually buried in Missouri? Like I can't remember, is it Kearney or
1995.
yeah, it was the 90s. So, what do you think about that?
So the first book I read on Jesse James, the book ends with that. So it's like, yeah, he died. The DNA test in 1995 proves it. Done in the story.
Because like me being a Virginia guy, like the whole DNA thing, I hate how that just kind of got used as a thing, you know? Because that's
Oh,
how they like
oh
say,
yeah.
"Oh, Thomas Jefferson," you know, and "Oh, what's
Oh,
your?"
oh
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
trust me,
His sister-in-law or whatever. Yeah, yeah. Not
yeah,
even sister-in-law. Just yeah.
yeah, you know, it's like, oh, well, it's got a Y chromosome from a Jefferson, and if you read the stories, yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, I find a lot of that stuff in the '90s with like the DNA stuff was like just shit to get ratings on, like Oprah.
So I am now on my iPad looking for this DNA story because it was a farce, absolute garbage. They did not test a single piece that they took from that grave. They lost it. But let me back it up with actual what I wrote, 6 months, or probably 9 months ago, actually. So, I'm too much empty time here. Anyways, there was this
Fill
guy.
space.
Yeah, there was this guy named Daniel J. Duke. Actually, his mother wrote a book in the 90s saying my grandfather was Jesse James. So, all right, back up. there are two men who claim to be, well, there's only one man who claims to be Jesse James after he died. That was James Frank Dalton out of Texas. And he knew enough about Jesse James and the buried gold because he found a bunch and he had a bunch of maps and letters that he claimed he wrote. James Frank Dalton could have been Jesse James, but I don't believe he was. I think he knew Jesse James, and when the real Jesse James died, he took that persona onto himself. Now, there's a guy named Daniel J. Duke who wrote a book. His mother wrote a book in the early 90s, and his mother was very adamant that the Black Book, the Jesse James's Many Names book that James Houck wrote, or Jesse James III, he goes by both, that wrote, and he could have been a kid because he probably had, liaisons around. But anyways, Daniel J. Duke wrote a book in 2019, and then he wrote a second one in 2020, and then a third one in 2022. But he uses his mother's research and then his own research after that to kind of prove that actually, no, my great-great-grandfather was Jesse James. And J. Frank Dalton took on the persona of Jesse James after he died after my grandfather died, or great-grandfather died.
It's like a real Dread Pirate Roberts kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so Daniel J. Duke, he and his mother in 1995, they went to the police department in Kearney County, I think, or something. I don't remember. I'm still trying to find it, but I don't want to waste time here. So they tried to find this DNA evidence. They tried to find the police report, and the police report was quote unquote destroyed the year before they asked, which is just garbage. But in 1995, oh, you know what? I'm just going to search 1995. Duh. Sorry, this is bad podcasting.
Use those data centers for
okay, here we go.
Advantage.
I know, I'm looking through my own writing here. I listened to my episode over this today to prepare, but I was so busy. Anyways, so let me just really quickly quote from my own episode. I know that's bad.
You're fine.
Duke had in his possession his great-great-grandfather's diary. So great-great-grandfather. His diary, which had the entries signed Jesse James. And the real kicker, Duke's mother completely debunked the DNA testing quote-unquote proof. He writes that his mother proved that the 1995 exhumation of the alleged grave of Jesse James, upon which they placed so much confidence, was a farce. Stephen Caruso, the deputy counselor of Fort Clay County, Missouri, at the time of the 1995 exhumation and DNA testing of the reported grave of Jesse James, told the Kearney Courier the whole thing was quote-unquote phony. And then, quote, they, the James Farm and Museum, tried to do DNA testing on remains that weren't Jesse James, end quote. Caruso said, he claimed that someone lost Jesse James. Sorry, it's really small. I'm going to have to blow it up here. He claimed that someone lost Jesse's hair that was to be tested, but then it suddenly turned up. He also claimed that someone submitted their own hair in place of the lost hair. He told me and my mother in his office who that someone was and exactly how and why it was done. So yeah, that whole DNA test was a farce. If you were to believe Daniel J. Duke.
I mean, the skeptic in me, like I said, I think a lot of that DNA stuff in the 90s is just some Oprah getting ratings type of thing. That's my catch-all.
Then you got the police officer saying it was a farce, and the hair that was submitted wasn't even the hair they found. Somebody else just put their hair in there. So they faked the results. They faked the test. The whole thing was fake.
But then the media runs with the story, and then
exactly.
Yeah.
And the people who fought against he and his mother were the Jesse James Museum. Like, they might have stake in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, like just to go back to like Monticello and Jefferson a bit, like it, I don't know if you've ever visited, but they have like a whole tour for Sally Hemings and everything. It's interesting to say the least.
I don't believe a word of it. I'll be honest. I don't believe a word of it.
Especially when you read his actual like correspondence and like all the crap he wrote.
All you have to do is read his correspondence. All you have to do is read anyone at the Times words. All of this, it's all fabricated since the 1960s or 70s. It's all
Yeah.
garbage. It's all garbage.
Yeah, he was a sensitive young man, he wrote.
He was the most sensitive young man out of all of us. I'm as a Southerner, I'm a big Thomas Jefferson fan.
Me myself as a Virginian.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm a native Georgian.
I know, that's why I call you Doc Holliday. You you're born in the Peach State, and then you just decided to like dress up like a cowboy and go to the
Go to New
desert.
Mexico. Doc Holliday died in New Mexico.
Yeah.
It's a good state to die in. I will say 60 years from now, 50 years from now. I'm old. I'm 40 next year. Dang. I'm a man. I'm almost 40.
Come at me.
Yeah. Don't come at my boys.
Oh,
I
it's
went to
tough,
Oklahoma. I did not go to Oklahoma State. Sorry.
Man. I'm probably gonna rub you the wrong way. I'm a Longhorn fan because of my uncle and dad, mostly my uncle.
I'm
So,
sorry you cut out there. I didn't hear anything you just said, and you
oh, I
don't
was
need
gonna
to repeat
say,
it.
you went to Oklahoma.
No, you don't need to repeat it. I didn't hear it, but I don't think I need to. No, I heard it.
Touche. Well, yeah, dude. Do you want to do any plugs? I'll make sure when this gets uploaded, I'll link, your Twitter or whatever you need, your podcast.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. TheAmericanSouthwest.com is pretty much it. I mean, you can find everything there. My podcast, my recipes. Oh, I'm running for county commissioner in Bernalillo County, District
that's kind of
5.
that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so I live in Bernalillo County, which is the same county that Albuquerque is in. But where I live, there's an entire mountain range separating me from Albuquerque. So we are just shoehorned in here for
Reasons.
reasons. So I feel pretty confident, but I do got a lot of work to do.
Well, wish you the best, man. Thanks for coming on. This was a lot of fun. Might have to have, well, definitely if I have my way, we'll definitely have more chats in the future, man. But thanks for coming on. Stick around. Have a good
Yeah,
night.
absolutely. You too, brother. Thank you.